You're listening to Hardscape Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hardscape Growth Show. I'm your host, Alex from TechnoBlock, and today we're joined by Ryan Markewich from RMark and from Creative Roots Landscaping. I asked Ryan to join me on the show because we met a few weeks ago at an event in Florida, and we got to talking about the open book management style that he runs at Creative Roots and that he consults and helps other companies integrate. And I found it pretty interesting because what it seems to successfully do is build a team of owners. Everyone has skin in the game. Everyone has visibility over what makes a successful win for the business on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly, yearly. So everyone's rowing in the same direction. And I thought that'd be really interesting to talk to someone about, especially someone who has been doing consulting on it for a long time and has been running the program himself. So welcome to the show, Ryan. Why don't you give us a little bit of more background as to how you got into this business and what led you down the road to this point?
Sure. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate you having me on the show today. So I started in 1994. So that's 30 years ago this year with a lawnmower and a truck. And I was knocking on doors to make sure I got enough lawn mowing contracts to pay the bills. And just as things progressed, I just started seeing more and more opportunity to learn more skills. And things went on and on and on. So let's fast forward 11 years to about 2005. I was doing I think we did about 1.32 million that year in sales. And I can't remember, maybe 18, 19 full-time people at that time. And things were great, with the exception of I was working 18 hours a day. And I wasn't unhappy about working 18 hours a day, but I couldn't break the next barrier. I couldn't get on with things simply because I couldn't be everywhere, and I didn't want to work 19. So in essence, I was making enough money. We were doing great work. We were building a reputation. We were excited about going to work every day, but I couldn't see a way to get past that barrier. And so a friend of mine one day, when I was crying on his shoulder, recommended a book to me called The Great Game of Business. I said, well, I'll read it. Absolutely. Why not? I don't mind reading. I love it. And this is the book. It's a story that dates back to the late 70s, early 80s, about a very cool comeback story in American history and business, and a very successful one. So I read that book, and I said, that makes a whole lot of sense to me. I flew down to Springfield, Missouri to do a kind of a 2-day learn what this is about, get in the game kind of workshop. And when I left there, I said, I'm going to run my business this way, or I'm not going to run it at all. It just made a whole lot of sense to be transparent and have more hands lifting based on the true metrics of business, and which are, the financials, the profit and loss, the balance sheet, etc. In addition to just all the management things that usually owners take on their shoulders all by themselves. And so I did that. And at that time, I kind of joked to the guys down at Great Game that one day I'll become their first Canadian coach. And since then, we have managed to grow our business past 3 million, and are targeting a much higher level than that for our 2030 vision. And I became Canada's first Great Game of Business coach 3 years ago, and I am the only one that's certified from the green industry in the world. So now I just help people. I just help people implement open book management into their company by using me as an example.
Cool. That's. I want to back up a little bit to what the book contained that was so compelling for you. You gave us the high levels, this comeback business success story from the 70s and 80s.
Right.
What was it that stood out to you that as you're reading, you're compelled to continue reading it? Because there's a lot of self-help books and business books that you read the first 2-3 chapters, like, all right, I get the gist of it. And you close the book, you never open it again. So what was so compelling that brought you the whole way through and that really stood out to you that you need to take this action and not another one?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, the book is based off a story of a business that was failing in the early '80s because of extremely high interest rates and overseas competition in the automobile and engine remanufacturing sector, and their business was going to be shut down. So it ended up being an interesting story in the fact that these middle managers said, "What are we going to do? We live in Springfield, Missouri. Interest rates are 18%. There's no other work here. How are we going to keep our houses? How are we going to save our jobs?" So they went.
We have to make this work.
Yeah, how we're going to make this work. So they went on a 2 to 3 year. Let's find the money. This large conglomerate said they would sell them this one little piece of their business for $9 million, and they ended up scrounging together $100,000. And then they found someone crazy enough to lend them $8.9 million based on 100,000 down at 18%. So an 89 to 1 debt to equity. Yeah. And then they came back. They were really good at doing what they were doing, but it came back to, oh no, we got the money. What happens if we can't make our payments? What happens if shipping doesn't realize that has to go out by Friday at 4:00 in order to get paid the following week? What happens if purchasing buys too many of these? What happens if the salespeople oversell? We can't deliver all these things. And so out of necessity, they just came up with this thing as, well, let's just teach everybody about business. So they started just teaching their employees more and more about what the financials meant. And in essence, what they realized that were the numbers were simply stories about people and what they were doing. So they started to engage people at that level, and they saw remarkable things. It's a very successful business, and it still is today. And and so it became of interest to the public. They started, people started taking notice. They were asking, "How are you doing it?" And someone said, "Well, what do you call this way of managing?" And someone, I think it was John Case, is like, "Oh, that's open book management." So they came up with this word.
Because it's John an open book. You have
it's
to
open
hide.
book.
Like, this is how we need to run the business. These are the things. Yeah. This is all the roles that everyone needs to play. And this is how you know you're doing a good job. This is what we need you to do to keep this thing going. So if you like it here, this is what you got to do.
Yeah. And so I'll even elaborate on that just a tiny bit, Alex.
Yeah.
I guess to some degree, it's always going to be a little bit like that. Mm-hmm. But in my company, I don't say this is what we need you to do. We sit and we work in a high involvement environment, and we say, what do we need to do? So it's so collective. And I think that's probably the biggest key in making open book management work, is that the high involvement planning, the high involvement sharing of knowledge, the transparency, the inclusiveness really is what engages people at a higher level of intellect. Because people really are going to support what they help create. And so I'm very careful with my wording there, because they say words matter.
Yeah,
but, so that's it. And actually, one of the most compelling things was we got to walk the shop floor when we were down there. That was late 2006 probably, and then a panel of employees was there, and we could ask them all these questions. And I remember the employees, one guy saying, we had guys work here. They can go down. They quit. They go down the street to get $3 more an hour. They think that's all great. And then 2 years later, we see them back. The other guy says, if I want to buy myself a new bass fishing boat, I know exactly where the company stands. I know that next week I'm not going to walk in and my job's going to be lost. I make decisions based on the reality of the marketplace and where we stand within it. And I said, that just makes a lot of sense. And so from that point, we hired a coach from them, and it really wasn't much of a coaching platform back then. It was just a story and some guy helping you maneuver through it. And so, and then we just started playing, just like any game, I suppose.
Yeah. And the more you play, if you pay attention, the better you can get.
Well,
if you're paying attention to the right things, I guess.
Yeah. And, business is a game. If you look at it with, from the view that it has rules, government makes rules. There's company policies. There's all sorts of rules. There's players. There's definitely players, and it has an outcome, win or lose, and probably a bigger outcome than any other game you take on in life.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense as a model. What so what exactly does that entail then? Like, this is conceptually, but like, let's take it down into the integration in your business. So that was at Creative Roots, which is still the company that you're a part owner of, because I guess everyone else is a part owner too now, right?
Not everybody.
Right? Not everybody.
We didn't opt for an ESOP, which are a little more popular in the US.
Okay.
And Canada really has not come that far with ESOPs, but they are working on some employee trust type options now. We opted just for just a partnership limit, but we operate in such I would say, an inclusive and consensus based way. In essence, our decision making, the way we make decisions, is very much like everyone is a partner, and so that's really how it works. And so I have 4 partners now. I have 20% of the company left.
Okay. Yeah. So what's the day to day, or what does a year look like in that model? I'm asking the question as if I'm listening to this episode right now. I'm running a business. I've been running it for 5 years or 10 years or longer, but I feel that I'm kind of hitting that plateau, like you were saying, where everything's on me, and I'm having trouble delegating certain things to certain people, but I don't even know if I can hire more people to take on other responsibilities, or if I should just try to delegate to the people I have. Like, what do? I don't know. I'm stuck.
Yeah.
It's working, but I'm stuck. I can't go forward.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And I ask myself, how do you get to that point where you don't involve people at the higher level, or you don't know who to trust? And I think what happens is the owners are typically so focused and driven and learning at such a breakneck speed that if they're not sharing along the way, the gap between the people who don't have the knowledge and the guy who does have the knowledge is so big, it just seems like, either they don't care or they're not smart enough to get it. But they weren't working with the same why as you did as you were building that business, because you were building something. You were building for equity. You were building to support a family, whatever it was you were doing. And I think that, I was there. It's like, well, how can I share all this information? It's not going to happen overnight. It's actually going to take a lot of effort to get to that point. And I think really that's what Great Game and Open Book Management provides, is that platform to know exactly how to get everyone up to speed, whether it's just the meeting rhythms or the high involvement planning structure. And so day to day, we're just like any other business. 90% of what we do is go out and doing landscaping. But we have that other side to us where we realize that ultimately the company is the product. And if we're focused on the company and build a great product there, and we just happen to do landscaping, we should all do pretty well.
Can you dive into that a little bit more, that concept of the company is the product? Like, as a consumer, I want to get my backyard done. So what does that mean in your head?
From the consumer's point of view, I would just imagine that they would want people in their yard doing that work that are engaged and happy with what they're doing and working with purpose. And so when we see the company as the product, that if, kind of like the goose that lays the golden egg, if you feed that goose well, you're going to get more out of it. And I think that's where the culture really gets built, is that we're building something larger than ourselves. And we happen to do landscaping, but there are plenty of spaces for us to take on other things like growing trees, or getting into civil work with our machinery. But if we understand that the basics of business, just doing good business, from sales to how to train people, and this is a big thing now, and it's been long overdue, is how do you get your people up to speed? How do you attract most people? And I really think that people are looking for stability. And so that if the company is the product and we're working on building a great company, that people will want to be a part of it.
So on a day-to-day basis, there's so many questions. I'm trying to structure them in a way that makes sense here. But on a day-to-day basis, it looks the same as anyone else. So where is the major difference then? Like you said, all the decision-making is based on a consensus and all that. And, I work in a fairly large company, so I can see how some of that stuff works. But I guess what if I have company, like we go back to the first part where I said, like, I'm running a company that is X definition. What are the major differences? Like if I put the two beside each other, this model and that model, what are the main differences that anyone can see within a few minutes of just opening the doors of both of them?
Well, I think the main difference would be if you were to visit one of our financial or just our non-financial weekly huddles, where everyone's gathered to discuss and report and forecast the financials out, where the level of involvement. I think we're having one on next Tuesday, and I think Colette told me the other day we have 11 people reporting, and these are all employees. So the ownership of the line items on the profit and loss for a critical number, or our drivers to critical number, like our KPIs, are actually owned by employees. So if you look at when LMN came to visit us in November and used our place as a facility tour, Mark Bradley and I sat at the back of and Mark looked over at me and he says, "Well, they're all talking like owners." And I kind of giggled inside. And then when we were at the LMN conference, he told the story about me being redundant. And, I mean, everybody needs to be wanted, but that kind of made me feel good too. I have a business that I can contribute to,
right,
if I want to, but I don't need to be there in order for it to do very well.
So what does talking like owners really mean?
Well,
what are they talking about?
Yeah, if you talk to any one of my employees, they could walk you through our financial scoreboards that are posted in our shop, in our meeting room, and they understand the profit and loss statement. We do financial literacy training a little bit formally, and we do a lot of informal financial literacy training. So that's part of the onboarding process. It's part of the continued development. We also play what's called mini games, which are 60 to 90 day short-term improvement challenges, where they're focused on something that has a direct line of sight to what we've defined as being a win. Right now, it's the mini game they're playing is called Development on Fire, and they have a big scoreboard. They've got 30, 60, 90 day rewards. They got 30 and 60, 90 day check-ins on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. They report the status of it. You might have seen a LinkedIn post where I've been posting a bit of that.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's just a lot of involvement, Alex. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, it helps. I'm just trying to like picture what it means. So like the example of the mini game.
Yeah.
What is the real objective of that mini game that's happening right now?
Yeah. So the real objective on this is to make sure that we get our people as developed in their skill sets as possible.
Okay.
And so that's great. If you and I were in business together, we say we were going to do that, but we want to ramp it up and say in 90 days, get people, to whatever level, we would have to come up with some sort of plan. So we gamify it.
Okay.
Right. And so in any game, you have a scoreboard. In any game, you check the score on a regular basis. In any game, you understand what constitutes a win or a partial win even. And in any game, when you win, you have rewards associated. In any game, you also identify the players. So there's a 10-step process to building a mini game. but that we use, and that's in essence what it is. It's a 60 to 90-day improvement challenge that focuses on a financial, marketplace, operational, or people issue more
So
often
are
than
they like
not.
broken up into groups trying to solve those things, or are they're all one group?
Yeah. So
Like,
everybody has their own development plan
okay,
in our
every
business.
employee.
Every employee, not
Okay.
just employees, the owners as well. We can consider ourselves employees also.
If you work there, you have a plan.
Yeah, we have a development plan, and so those tasks might be, getting a understanding, going through a safety thing. It might be learning how to prune XYZ properly if you're in the maintenance division. It might be taking your level 1 or 2 financial literacy training.
Okay.
It could be anything that's related to making sure that people are kind of talking the same language and understanding how to do their jobs better.
Okay. Basically, that they can contribute to the best of their ability in
Yeah.
their role.
Yeah, beyond, and kind of beyond the onboarding. One of the more successful ones we did a few years ago was on onboarding, and that was interesting because that mini game kind of just lasted the first few months of the season, but it was hugely successful because we sell services to the luxury home market, and people are expecting a very high level all the time. So if you have some turnover and stuff, how do you get your people up to speed? And so we had implemented this mini game at that point, and it really went well. And we were able to now have a system in place that will move forward in perpetuity. Where prior to having that mini game, we just said, "Oh, we have to go get Bob or Bill or Alex trained," and we didn't really have a system of doing it. This really just turns all eyes onto a problem for a short period of time to create a system or a process that helps solve that in perpetuity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense from that standpoint, because if you can have the many different players looking at that problem, let's say the onboarding one, they're going to understand all the challenges with onboarding. You'll get a bunch of stories of, people that you onboarded that you thought you did a good job with, and they'll highlight 20 things that you thought you covered, but you didn't.
That's
or
right.
Things that they really need to know to do their job that they still don't know to this day because it was never shown to them. And then you start to realize, like, okay, so we can address all these things, and then you formulate a plan together. How does the gamification part come into play? Like, is it if we get this done by a certain time or on target, we all win something, or are there some winners and some losers? Like, how's it work?
Yeah, no, we win or lose as a team across the board, even in our profit sharing in our company. But there's a 30 and a 60 and a 90-day reward. None of them in mini games are money based. Like, they're not rewarded that way. Our profit sharing on an annual basis, which is paid out quarterly, is monetary, but not the mini games. But so there's a 30, 60, and 90. So we'll see what happens.
If we hit the target, we get the reward, and if we don't, we don't.
That's right. And they'll
And
know
if we
exactly
don't, what happens? Can we still rebound and hit the 60-day target?
Oh, absolutely.
Game over.
Yeah. No. You're playing for 90 days. You have it there. It's just like in any game. If you have 3 periods,
it could be down by a few goals after the first and still come back and win.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and I think people in general just want to win. There's a lot of people out there that haven't had a lot of success with that for whatever reason in their lives, and basically you're just teaching people that they're winners. And it's contagious, and so when you have some great players on your team who are helping the other people win, it kind of snowballs.
This episode is brought to you by Hardscaper.com. The Hardscaper mission is to empower industry professionals with the skills, inspiration, and confidence they need to take their businesses to new heights. Struggling with training programs for your team? Looking for helpful tips to build a better company? Subscribe today to gain access to hours of interactive, on-demand hardscape construction and business courses for free. Check out hardscaper.com. So what are some of the bigger impacts, or even small impacts but they're notable, that you've noticed within your own business that speak to really this is why? And it's not because of your individual leadership or the individual people and what they try to bring to the table. But it's this philosophy or this management style that is creating that environment for these impacts to take place.
Yeah. I always go back. I've thought about that a lot, okay. Alex. It's a good question. And I always go back to the comment, you hear this all the time, how to find rock stars, how to hire rock stars. And I keep thinking to myself, we're all looking for the needle in the haystack, and it's not easy. There is only one, at the time there was only one Wayne Gretzky. And so how do you create them? How do you create a business where if you lose a person, you haven't based a business based on their unique and diverse personality, but you've based a system based on you based a business based on a process that helps tap into the higher intellect of the people doing the work. And so in essence, open book management is kind of just what, in a broad scope, this is how people mostly see it as sharing the financial information. Mm-hmm. If you take that one step forward and you separated that into open book finance, which is what that would be exactly, and then open book management, and you just start talking business to the people you're in business with, and you start getting that common language, and you start collectively identifying the targets and the goals with a high level of agreement, then you're just simply going to get more engagement and buy-in.
But by default, just having those conversations.
Yeah.
As transparently as possible, I guess. So like what is on the table and what's off the table in terms of those business discussions? And, really, and where does the line get drawn, or is there a line?
Well, really the only line is we just don't share personal compensation. I mean, everyone's going to have a pretty good idea what, the other person is making based on their role and stuff like that. But we don't come out and say, Alex is making $30 an hour and Ryan's making 32. And, so if I think most of our people on our crew are friends, they probably share it amongst themselves, but
probably a pretty good idea already.
But that's the only thing. Other than that,
what about like HR related things? Like, let's say we're having an issue with a crew leader, or we're having an issue with a particular technician in the field, or someone in the office. Like, how does that get addressed in these situations?
Professionally, and no, that's not something we discuss. Amongst our the whole team. And so we look for signs. We do employee surveys. We look for signs, and when we see that sign, we first go to, have we put our best foot forward? What's causing the issue? Have we looked in the mirror to identify, what we can do to make this person successful? And then we interact with them through HR, through leadership only. And Colette in our office, who is also our great game wizard and master of a whole bunch of stuff, we had her trained in some high-level coaching at the university. And so she works with people on their goal setting and in these situations.
Okay. So, I mean, it makes, there's so many ways that you can go with the conversation, but I'm trying to think, like, you're a big part of it is goal setting, and a big part of the goal setting is having a very clear vision from the beginning. So one of the things you mentioned was your 2030 vision. So would you mind, and we don't need to get into specific numbers or anything like that, but like, what is a great example of setting that vision, mapping that out into a few key goals so that I can start to have those conversations with my team and maybe start, like you said, start playing the game. Maybe I won't be good at it at first, but at least start to play.
Right.
Get a puck on the ice, grab a stick, and start to play a little bit.
Yeah. And I understand how it all seems very vague and dreamy, the whole concept of it. And that's why I really push people to read a couple of the books like this. The great game was the story. This is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
This is listed in the top 100 business books of all time. Like there's got to be 100 books written a week on business, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
This is a very powerful book, and it's just a story about what was happening. This is the how-to. The people wanted to understand how to get through these processes. There's 10 steps in here. Okay. Begin with the right leadership, share the why before the how, open the books and teach the numbers, identify your critical numbers, act on the right drivers, create a profit sharing program, huddling and keeping score, etc. And so there's 10 specific steps so
for those of you listening who aren't watching this, that book is called Get in the Game, which is basically the follow-up to the Great Game of Business.
Yeah, that's right. And I played for a long time, and I'm sure we've all played. Many of us have played sports for a period of time, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, I could have made that play if I only would have known that 10 years ago. And until I went through the certification process, which took a year, I didn't realize exactly where our game was weak. Mini games was one of them, and high involvement planning was the other. Alex, is getting people involved in planning is such a powerful thing to do.
Mm-hmm. It really
and
is.
I think, again, so that's what I'm saying with regards to, and this is usually typically only done with upper management and ownership.
Usually, yeah. And that's where you leave a lot of the details on the table. You don't think of them, one, and two, and tell me if you agree or disagree, but, and two is, it's really tough to get the buy-in because it's not my idea. It's your idea. And if I have a better idea, or I think I have a better idea, well, I might half-ass my effort because I don't believe in this direction. Yeah. You're paying me to, so I will, but I feel like we could be doing something different. And that's where involving the right people is critical. But if they don't think about the same things that you do or in a similar fashion to you, then you may not see the value in what they can bring to the table. So that's why being transparent and teaching them things like financial literacy and talking to them about how the business runs helps them think the same way. Exactly. But if you're not doing that, then they can't contribute well. So then you're reluctant to involve them in the planning, which makes them reluctant to buy into the planning. So it's this whole downward spiral thing.
Yeah. Yeah. If they don't buy in, they won't execute. That's for sure. And you nailed it. Alex, all that stuff is the exact reasons why we have an energy crisis, a human energy crisis. Is people are not engaged. They don't necessarily believe in the game they're playing, but they don't actually even understand the game they're playing because they're being invited to the field, but they're not asked to play. They're not fed the information. And since time began, since the accounting system began, which is almost 600 years ago when it was created, the financials tell the health of the company. To the most degree, you can tell a healthy company, right? If you have an AR issue, you're not, it's a human thing. You're not billing fast enough. You're not billing on time. You're not delivering on your promises. So we can look at that and we start teaching people how to see it on a very, very, I'm not going to say it's a high level, but none of my people are becoming accountants.
Right. No, but they just get enough of it that, especially if you have a scoreboard with like simple metrics or simple key performance indicators, they can see it can be boiled down to as simple as like one of the things that we do is like a traffic light, like green, yellow, red.
Right.
If we're in the green, it's good. Yellow, hey, hold on, let's be careful. And red, okay, stop. So what's wrong? We messed something up.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we have that when we've identified our critical numbers, and our critical numbers this year were profit before tax and development, human development. And so we have metrics defined for the entire season that we can follow on our scoreboards, and our employees will own those line items and report on them in our huddles.
And what does that look like? So if there are a few key metrics, how how are those defined? So basically, like, you have your vision, you have your goal. How are we going to measure the goal? We work down from
Right.
there. And
Yeah.
then within that goal, these are the things that we know we're on track. So let's say if it's profit, you said one of the key ones was profit before tax.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to do that, I guess I need to be looking at what my revenue is. So in order
Yes,
to look
that's
at what
right.
my revenue is, I need to be looking at what my pipeline of sales is looking like also.
Right.
Well, I need to look at what my close rate is. So let's say we want $1 million of profit before tax, just inventing a scenario here, and we're making 20% profit because we're really good with our numbers. So that means I need to be doing $5 million of sales.
That's right.
If my
Yeah,
close rate is 50%, well, then I need $10 million in the pipeline.
that's right. And so the entire company would not get involved in the sales pipeline. That would be design, a leader in design, a leader in or a management in construction, and one in maintenance.
Okay.
They would manage that, and they would work with their own teams departmentally.
Okay.
But on an annual basis, we do what we call high involvement planning. That's that book again.
Yep.
That takes it does go all year, but it's most of the heavy lifting in this book, and the process would be done over 3 months. And so prior to the year end, we would have votes and surveys and have had enough involvement from all employees to make sure that we have a majority vote, that is our plan, our people plan, our sales plan, etc., our culture plan, our fun plan, whatever the plan is that we deem that needs to be focused on. We will not move forward without an 80% across the company vote.
Wow.
And this last year we had 100%. We came out of our final high involvement planning meeting, which was a half day, where the people had done, each department did their sales presentations, and that sounds reasonable. That makes sense based on what we think the economy looks like on a macro and microeconomic level, what our people look like at this level, at this time, what our facility will tolerate, etc. It all just we're just looking at the realities of the marketplace and where we stand in it, and we're making a plan to move forward.
Do
And that
you
80%
ever
vote is powerful.
Yeah. And how many employees are there now?
Well, there'll be 25 this year, so it's a small company still. But
but I mean, still, it's that's 25 opinions. You gotta rally. You gotta get at least 20 of the 25. So it's not nothing.
And so if you are a larger company, Great Gamesman gets played with companies with several thousand employees across the planet. It's just broken down. The steps to getting the buy-in are just broken down a bit differently, because we could still have everybody in one room. You can't put 11,000 employees in one room.
Be a heck of a room.
You can get the bulk of those to actually answer some surveys and pay them to do so. And you can collate all the information, and you can get some common themes, and you can put a target on those things.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. It's doable. I mean, if it's worth doing, then there's a way to measure it. You just got to figure out what is it that you want to measure. Yeah. Even things that are a little more intangible, like culture, for example, because you said culture plan could be one of them.
Right.
Like, how do you measure culture? You need to define what are the things that you want to see as signs of a healthy culture, and then those become your metrics.
Yeah. So one of my favorite stories, Alex, this was, I think, back in 2008 or something.
Yeah.
When the world was falling apart, and no one was sure if they were going to have enough business, et cetera, et cetera. And one day we just, we surveyed at the end of the year our team, and it was deemed that we just weren't having as much fun as we used to have. And that's important. Games are supposed to be fun. Mm-hmm. Not to the point where you're laughing off important stuff. There's two sides to it. Play hard, have fun. And so the answer to that was we put together a committee for people who don't know how to have fun good.
Okay.
Okay.
And then what?
Yeah. Well, then Sean, he was the committee chairman, and on an annual basis, he would he would poll and talk to the employees. They would vote on what would constitute having more fun. They would calendarize those events, and then we would report on those events in our meetings to see where we were at and what happened. And then we would forecast out the balance of the month. Hey, Alex, don't forget, next week we have the company barbecue or the golf event, or we're going to sit by the campfire after work and have a beer. Hey, don't forget, we all deem that this would help us have more fun. So go up to the scoreboard, put a happy face beside the event. The next week in the meeting, you report on it. Hey, we had that meeting. We had that fireside chat. That was great. Everyone had a good time. Sorry that, Mark and Annette weren't there, but maybe next time. And speaking of that, don't forget, next month we have the XYZ event.
So it falls under the whole what gets measured gets done philosophy.
And that's a huge part of what open book management is. But I don't hand any of that down, because if I handed down what I thought was fun, no one would have any fun.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard on an owner. It's like putting together a profit share. You're waiting till the end of the year. If I'm speaking to owners listening right now, tell me that you haven't tried to implement a profit sharing program and been completely stressed out at the end of the year when it's time to figure out who earns what. I know our people know exactly where they stand relative to the profit share. We have 10 levels, and they know exactly where they stand every single meeting we have. If they want to change the score to adjust the level of profit sharing they have to make a plan to do it.
And so in those meetings, is it common to have one member be like, you know what, I'm not happy with the way this is going, the direction this is going. I want to propose that we change something? Or is it something that generally all the signs are there and everyone notices it? Like, do you have members who are perhaps a lot more ambitious than others, and they see like we could do a lot better?
Of course. You're always going to get that. That's just, and you're going to get that out of different people at different stages of their lives also.
True.
Right?
True.
Right. We just sent 2 of our members up to Mark Bradley's Inner Circle helicopter skiing event.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They got back last night at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I can tell you those 2 guys are going to be on fire for the next 3-4 months. Right. They just did 3 days with Mark, strategizing and skiing during the day. Incredible. So, we meet them where they're at. That investment in them will bring an investment back. And so a typical meeting might be, I might stand up there and say, hey team, we're forecasting, 72,000 in gross profit for the end of February. And we're at the end of the first week and we've got 15,000 already. My forecast is only going to be 60. The run rate is going to stay true. It's 15 per week. So we're going to end up at 60 and 72. Alex is going to put up his hand and say, what's going on here? Why are we going to be lower? And me, as the person who owns that line item, has to have that answer.
Yeah. So there's a great sense of accountability across the board.
Yeah. If you're outside of a 5% variance plus or minus on the target in your forecast, you have to come with an answer. So my answer might make a lot of sense to you, Alex, but if it doesn't, it's your role as the player to challenge me. That doesn't make any sense, Ryan. I said, oh, you know what? Let's do that again. Pull up my calculator. Oh, sorry, guys. I made a mistake on the math here. Yeah, we are going to get 2 extra guys, and those guys are going to bring in X amount. So and then if you forecast out to the end of the quarter and they look over at the profit share sheet and they're at a level 4, someone will inevitably say, well, how much to level 5? Yeah. Oh, we're $100 short.
Oh, well.
Or $1,000 short. And someone says,
let's figure something out, guys.
Hey, will 2 of you guys come and help me on Saturday before the month end? And yeah, I'll come in. Bang, it's done.
There you go.
Those 3 people move the entire team up a level in profit share.
Wow.
But they care because they have a stake in the outcome.
That's it. Well, that's why it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It sounds scary to an extent because it's very different for a lot of people, but by the same token, any change can be scary if you look at it the
I'll
right
tell
way
you,
or the wrong
Alex,
way.
I'll tell you what's scary. I'll tell you what's scary,
Tell me
man.
what's scary.
Keep your players in the dark. Don't tell them the real way to make money. Don't teach them how to make money. Don't teach them how they can affect the outcome. Don't involve them. To me, that's scary. I did it for too many years, and I changing employees like I was changing underwear before.
Well, I mean, if I think about it, if you don't share enough information with them, and jump in here whenever you want, but if you're not sharing enough information with them, like I said before, they can't come with great ideas that make sense to you because they're not aware of the same things that you are. Yeah. They don't feel that they have any real impact on the outcome of the company, which means that if they're thinking about it in terms of like their professional growth or development or their ability to earn more money, if I don't see how I can have an impact on the company and I don't see if the company is growing or not, I can't really figure out if I'm going to make more money or not, if I can make more money or not. I may ask for a raise, but it's completely unfounded on anything because I need more money. So I don't know how to ask for it other than saying I need more. And I can't say how I can add value to the company because I don't even know how I add value to the company today. So those are just a few of the examples of this, like all the things that you're forfeiting. And that forces you to end up having a higher turnover rate because in the end, if I'm an employee and these are all the things that are going through my head, well, yeah, if I see another offer or I find out that like my role in another company could be making $20,000 more a year or $10,000 more a year, apples to apples, because the only thing I can compare is the dollars because I know nothing else about the business.
Yeah.
Well, then, yeah, I'm probably going to think about jumping and I probably will jump. But if I understand everything and I'm like, well, you know what? This company has a lot of opportunity. It's going very well. I like the people I work with. I see how I contribute. I can have a direct impact on the outcome at the end of the year. And I know that if I can hit this level, I can get into profit sharing. And even within the profit sharing, I can keep climbing the ladder. If I'm a strong employee with a good brain and a good heart and wanting to do well for myself, for my family, and for the company, I have a long future here. And it becomes obvious to me that is the case. If you keep them in the dark, well, then it's not obvious to me. And I have to do a lot of digging. And if you're a very busy owner, you don't have the time to answer all my probing questions. So I get even more annoyed. Like it's really, it can multiply and amplify in either direction, depending on how you start.
It's the most common sense, like, and I go back to the Great Game Business, a business book, and it says right on the cover, right? The only common sense way to operate a company. And you made so many good points there. And I just say, like the old saying, either you teach them and they leave, or you don't teach them and they stay. What's worse?
Yeah.
And I can say that about we can use that in anything, in the skills or anything, but I want to talk business with people I'm in business with. Alex, I love talking with you today, but I have these exact same conversations with every single one of my employees. The exact same conversations. So tell me, in absence of that, what conversations are you having with your employees?
Yeah. So what are you talking about? Because if you're not talking about those things, well, then you're not bringing them with you. You're leaving them behind. It's what you said right at the beginning. As the owner, you get exposed to so many things. You have to learn at such a high rate of speed that if you're not sharing that stuff with your team,
in
the
real
gap
time
just keeps growing and growing and growing. And you fully understand how to run a business after doing it for a decade, but your employees are still in the exact same spot.
Oh, don't they get it?
Doesn't
anybody care? It's the same old stuff, man. And so this is and you go back to what compelled me to keep going. It was like the light bulb went off. I said, this only makes sense. If I'm playing on a team, somebody, I'm running up the field with the ball.
Yeah.
The other guy has to
nobody knows how to run the play.
Yeah.
I'm stuck carrying the ball by myself the whole way down. I'm going to get tackled for sure. I have nowhere to send it.
And in that notion is the communication. I'm open, or like, and
Yeah.
you're passing that ball back and forth, and you're one person's identifying an opportunity, but the other ones see it too. So it's really easy to stop one person, especially when they're working. They get to the point where they're working 16, 18 hours a day, and they've maxed out because you know an entrepreneur wants to grow. So if he's leveled out, it's really hard on them, and it's hard on their families, and then they're hard on the other people. Why? Because they're working unnaturally. They're not
Exactly.
collaborating. And when you work unnaturally or do unnatural things, you act in unnatural ways, which I've done many ways. Ask some of my former employees. And so, anyways, the whole book management thing and the great game was just something that helped me put it all inside a box, even though it's far bigger than that. It's
It just
a
gives you a
game.
framework to
It gives you the
run it
framework,
with.
but I mean,
Yeah.
you end up ultimately, there's some non-negotiables. You should share profit. This way is a very good way to do it. It makes sense, but um, don't let that stop you from evolving your own game like we have. It's almost like an open source way of running a business, and we
Yeah.
always learn from the other people in our community.
I think that's the fun part of connecting with people.
Yeah.
It's one of the fun things, even for me hosting this podcast, is you get to pull these, like, I like that idea, I'm going to start using that one. Oh, I like that one. I'm
Yeah.
going to start using that one. And then you share that with your team, and then they take it to another level. And I think it's really important. You have to kind of put your ego aside. One, you have to be able to be flexible and open to change and suggestions. And you have to really believe in the potential of everyone on your team. If you can't have at least those three things in your head, everything we just talked about sounds like crazy talk.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're doing exactly what we're talking about. This is open book management.
Yeah.
We're managing our lives better by being open and transparent and inclusive. And we can agree and disagree and agree to disagree, and we can do all that stuff in between. But realistically, you're just connecting being a human and what we need as humans to making money. And then you're sharing in the outcome. So that's what I said when I left there. I said, if I can't run my business that way, I'm not doing it. It doesn't make nothing else makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, totally, I don't know how to respond to that other than saying, yeah, it makes total sense.
It's not for everybody, Alex. If you got something to hide, or you don't think that the people around you are smart enough to do it, if you don't have that high level of belief right from the get-go, and if you don't have that, read the book, and hopefully that helps. But if you don't have that, anything really great typically starts with a positive belief. And, for some people, it just wouldn't work. You get the person who puts up their hand. Oh, what happens when that person takes all your financial information and leaves your companies? What? That we're doing good or we're not doing good? What does it matter?
What's it going to change?
What's it going to change? Not going to change anything. And so, and if it did mean something, it meant that you didn't share it or teach them in a way that they understood their role in it. So.
Yeah. No, it's a lot to think about, but it's good. I really enjoyed hearing about how it works, and it makes a lot of sense. And I think I know a lot of people that operate in a similar way, but maybe don't have like a clear framework for how to do it. They kind of do it instinctually. Like, I'm not sure what to do here. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? They get a lot of information to make their decisions, but that doesn't mean that they have a structure to do it repetitively, and that it builds its own momentum within the organization, and you're not the one that has to lead it all the time. And I think that's the biggest benefit from what I can see. Like you said, you were able to sit at the back of the room with Mark while the rest of them ran the key decisions to be made for the company in that meeting. And you were just there. And like he said, you were kind of redundant, and like it'd be a nice place to be where you can build a team to the point where you're redundant. Because what that means is you're now free to do other things. Develop the company in another direction, or build another company, or whatever else you want to do.
Which is exactly what I've done, Alex. I dabble in the real estate, and I'm subdividing a property. I came home today for this podcast, and I'm going to go back to that site because I'm having some fun there. I've spent the last complete winters in Mexico for the last 10 years, with exception of this last one. So people would say, well, it's April or May. You're in the landscaping business. Don't you have to be home?
Yeah.
I'm saying, no, I don't have to be there. If I'm there, I can add value.
But you don't have to be there.
I don't have to be there.
Yeah.
It'll go. It does absolutely fine. And it'll even grow without me. Of course, like I said, I can add value. 30 years.
For sure you can.
I can add value, but I don't have to. And that is such a good feeling.
For sure.
I also opened I teamed up with a partner of mine, a new partner, and opened a barbershop and hair salon, where we bought one, a failing one. And now we're bringing that back around and selling it to their employees.
That's cool.
To its employees. So
that's cool.
And so,
well, you're walking the walk, that's for sure.
Well, it gives you the opportunity to go do stuff. And I probably got, my irons in too many fires, but that's my nature. And wow. So be it.
Can't be that bad. All right, Ryan. Well, let's wrap it up here. I really want to thank you for being on the show. If people want to reach out to you, learn more about your consulting and coaching services, anything that you can be helpful with, or they just want to check out your landscaping company and just kind of look at what things are happening, what are all the things, what's going on, and how do they find it?
Okay. So creativeroutslandscaping.com is our flagship company. 30 years today. We focus on design, build, and maintenance in the luxury home market for nice people who appreciate details only. And
very clear statement.
It's very clear. That's our purpose. And our brand promise is making neighbors jealous since 1994. So we take this shit seriously.
I love it.
We want to have fun, but we also understand that we're just a promise delivery system. And the more we can communicate on the field, the better. As for the coaching, I have a coaching site, a website called RMark, which is rmark.ca. Anybody can get a hold of me through that. You can get a free audio copy to The Great Game of Business on that site. And if you contact me, I'd be happy to send you a QR code that'll give you a 90-day challenge that I know will help improve something in your business for free. And if you just want to reach out and talk, I'm pretty easy.
Cool. All right.
Well,
that's so creativeroutslandscaping.com and rmark.ca.
That's right.
Those are the two websites, and everything branches off from there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, I'll let you go and get back to your subdividing of lots and all the fun stuff that you're doing over there.
All right, Alex.
Hopefully we'll talk again soon, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Ryan.
Yeah.
I'm reading the Mark on your shirt.
Don't worry. I've been called a lot worse than that. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Ryan.
All right.
Until next time, everyone, work hard, pave harder, and we'll see you next week on the Hardscape Growth Show.
All right.
You've been listening to Hardscape Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up. Each episode is all about taking the next step in running your business, so make sure you never miss a show by subscribing on your favorite podcast player. And if you're finding this information to be useful, help others in your position discover us by giving us a star rating and leaving a comment. We'll see you next week.